I'm a teacher and a school leader. And 3 years ago, I was living the dream. I was the headmaster of a school that I loved, in a country that I loved. And all of a sudden, I decided to move to a country that I didn't know, with a language I didn't know, to embark upon an adventure in the tiny village of Băbuțu, Cluj County. And today I want to share with you a little bit about why I would do such a thing. I was a good student at school. I got good grades. I did everything that was asked of me. Yet when I finished university, I've never felt so alone. I've never felt so lost. No one was telling me what to do. And I realized that I had, in one way or another, consumed an education. And there was this voice in me saying, I've consumed an education and now I have to produce a life. And I have no idea what to do. How do you live a life? And so I did what many people do when they're overwhelmed. I ran. I escaped. I went backpacking. And I traveled the world for quite a few years. And I'm very lucky because whilst I was traveling, I realized that I have a passion. And my passion is humanity. It's people. I'm passionate about helping people to grow, to thrive, to become the best versions of themselves. So it became very clear to me that I needed to become a teacher. I imagine that many of you in here are parents. And the most important things in your lives are probably your children for you, particularly when they're young. And it's safe to say that how we raise and educate our children really matters. I think it's also reasonable to say that what our children can do, what their values are, what they think, what they believe, the decisions they make, that's a really big indicator of what will become of humanity and what will become of this planet. And teachers, I think, play a very important part in this. If I was to ask you, how long do you think a teacher spends with a child on average every year? What do you think? It's 1,000 hours. These people are spending 1,000 hours with your children every year. So they're having a big influence. They need to be remarkable people. And so, coming back to my story, as I became a teacher, I was very excited. I was a mathematics teacher. The reality was a bit different to the dream. I was imagining helping children to become creative, to become great collaborators, to give great speeches in front of people, to see them smiling and just evolving into really incredible young people. But this is kind of what happened instead. My job became the head of mathematics. So I was the head of a mathematics department. And the key performance indicator, if you like, the thing that we were judged upon as a team was the proportion of children passing the Cambridge mathematics test, the national mathematics test. And we did it very well. We did that job very well. In 2 years, we went from 40% of the children to 70% of the children passing that national exam. This was in a school in inner London. But the thing was, the kids were getting better at the maths tests, but that's pretty much all they were getting better at, taking a maths test. They were no better at maths. They were no better at problem solving. They were no better at arriving in school on time. They were no better at sharing their feelings, communicating. They were no better at being empathetic. They hadn't learned any of the things that I believe they need to be great human beings. They'd simply learn when they see this question, they have to give this response. So I was wondering why I was teaching. And I realized actually that I'd got it all wrong. I didn't want to be a teacher of mathematics. I didn't want to be focusing on the mathematics. Certainly didn't want to be focusing on the exam results. What I wanted to be was a teacher of children. I wanted to focus on the children, who they are and what they need, more than what the mathematics curriculum demanded they learn. And so I made a decision. And from that point forward, my focus was going to be on being a teacher of children and to try and help my colleagues become teachers of children. Just imagine a world for a minute where every teacher in every school, whatever the system, is more concerned about all of those children sat in front of them, who they are, what they need, how they can help them to grow. And if that's their priority, and then they think about, obviously, the important things like the maths, the science, the geography, all of those things. I think it would be a radically different system. So back to my story, I had to leave the UK. I felt that I wasn't fulfilled in that role. And I moved to Beijing to work in an international school. I thought things might be better there. They were in some ways. There was great extracurricular programs. There in every school I've been in, there are people doing amazing things. But the focus was still the exam results. That was still the bottom line. And the bottom line was still what needed to be learned. So I was starting to realize that we have a global problem. Schools are not preparing children for life. And by being prepared for life, I think I mean three things. I think that kids should leave school being amazing learners, knowing that they can learn things on their own. I think that kids should leave school being able to build and have great relationships in their life. And I think that kids should leave school realizing that they matter, that they belong, that they can bring their ideas to life in this world. So, I left Beijing, the international school, and I moved to Buenos Aires, and I encountered a pig running around the schoolyard, and teachers chasing the pig, and other animals too. There was a veritable farmyard in the school, and teachers trying to collect the animals. And there were the oldest students in the school, the year 12s, standing on the edge and laughing. This was their end of school prank. And this is a very common practice all over the world. When children or young adults graduate from school, they generally do something funny or horrible to mark the end of their schooling. And this particular year, there was farm animals with teachers chasing them. When I spoke to some friends and colleagues about this, we came to a really powerful conclusion, I think. And that was that, why do the kids do this? The kids do this because in one way or another, they're angry. They've been told where to go, when to go there, what to learn, how to learn it for years. They've not been given any space, any expression. Bam, they explode. And so we decided, or actually my colleagues decided to do something about that. And they were very brave what they did. They threw out the curriculum for 1 hour a week. And instead they made the students the curriculum. They just opened a space, a circle, where all of the children could sit with a teacher. And the children could just bring their problems to the conversation, to the circle. Talk about how they're feeling. Talk about what's bothering them. Listen to each other. Be in a community. And they trained the teachers to be able to hold this space in a professional way. And they carried on with this. And what happened was, in that school now, today, on that last day of school, they've gone from farm animals running around to the young adults choosing to sleep on the floor of their school, in the school hall. The night before their graduation, they all sleep there on the floor of the school hall. Some of their teachers choose to go there and sleep with them. There's a microphone, and they pass it around, and they give thanks for all of the great memories that they've shared in the previous 12 years. That's what a graduation should be like. So I just want to define what I think the problem that we're facing is. I think that education, the schooling system, is not preparing our children for the future. I think this is unfair on the children, and it's unfair on the world. And I think that educators want to make the change. I think most people want to change, but they can't because they're stuck. And they're stuck because everyone, when we work, when we do anything, what we need to be able to do is to show impact. We need to be able to show we're making a difference. And the only currency of learning that is widely accepted is test scores, exam results. And so we give ourselves this false sense of security that education works when we get high test scores. I imagine there's some of you in here whose children have 9s and 10s, and you're feeling good about that. I hate to tell you that 9s and 10s are by no way a good indication of living a good life, being ready for a good life. They're an indication that you've learned lots of important stuff that you can write on a piece of paper, but it doesn't mean that you're ready to live a good life and to make a difference in this world. And so I think the problem that we're facing is that despite everyone wanting to change, we don't have the tools or resources needed to be able to show impact in things that we care about, like creativity, like communication, empathy, collaboration, critical thinking. We need to find ways to show impact in these things, and we need to find ways to work with children so that we can develop these things more intentionally. There are some great things happening. I'm going to give you 2 examples now of how I think we are already tackling this problem. First one, you can actually prepare young people for traditional exams, traditional tests, but in a different way. You can do it through dialogic and collaborative learning. That simply means that the teachers prepare the material beforehand, and then the children, they study it independently. But they study it in groups, maybe in 6. And they study it on their own devices or in their own folders. But when they're stuck, they have to ask the person next to them for help, the student next to them for help. And if that student can't help them, then they should ask everyone on the table for help. And if no one on the table can help, then they can ask the teacher, and the teacher can help. When you work this way with children, amazing things happen. I've seen it in various contexts. The performance in tests improves, and also the teacher doesn't have to do very much. It's quite scary, actually. It's really quite scary as a teacher. Another interesting thing happens. Generally, when you start working this way with children, and before you give them, say, their results in a test, and you ask them how they think they've done, they'll usually say that they don't think they've learned a thing, because they don't even understand what learning feels like and looks like. We have disempowered them so much in our schools that we don't know what real learning looks like. Learning is difficult, it's confusing, it's scary. We have to prepare them emotionally for doing this. We don't have to just give them this false sense of security that they always have the answer. We don't always have the answer. Another thing that's happening is, I talked about impact. AI is changing everything. There are brilliant minds all over the world now that have done lots of research and can say more or less what creativity, for example, will look like in a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 14-year-old, an 18-year-old. Empathy, 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 8-year-old, etc. It's almost like a curriculum. And with AI now, we can collect evidence of kids making behaviors that show that they're doing these things at age-appropriate ways, that show that they're developing these skills. And AI can help us to capture this magic, organize it, and put it into portfolios. If things like this carry on and they work, I believe that they can make tests, exams, a choice, not a necessity. I believe that we'll have a viable alternative for showing how learning is taking place, showing what young people can do. It's really, really exciting. I also want to share with you that everything that I've talked about so far is happening here in Romania. This is why I moved to Romania. I also think it's very scary what I'm talking about. Change is scary, especially when it's with your own kids. It's terrifying, and it's very tempting. I hear this all the time. Yeah, Ben, I understand what you're talking about, but school didn't do me any harm. It was good enough for me, so I'll stick with what I've got, thanks. And I want to say to you that that is not okay. For me, that's not okay. It's good enough isn't okay for our children. Our children deserve more. Our children deserve to know how to feel, to know how to talk about their emotions. It shouldn't be down to the chance that that happens at home. Schools can work on these things too. And what I really want to ask from all of you in here today is to get behind this if what I'm saying is resonating with you at all. To speak to children about what they're learning in school. To encourage teachers to try new things. To put some trust in educators when they're talking about trying things, because I know it's scary and it's very easy just to say, no, no, no. But give them some trust. Set them up for success. Be prepared to try different things. It's funny. In nearly 20 years of teaching, kids very rarely learn what I've tried to teach them. Because they don't really learn from what I'm saying or from what I'm showing them. Kids are like sponges. And what kids learn from is how I am. Kids learn from our habits and from our values. Kids learn more from how we are and what we do than what we say and what we show them. And that's an amazing thought, because it means that actually all of you in here who are seen by children, you're all teachers, every single one of you. So please, together, let's teach them what really matters. Thank you.